In order for you to grow your business, you have to grow yourself. It's better to fail and figure it out than to not figure it out because you're afraid to fail. The number one thing I would tell myself if I had to go back and say something about being afraid to sell is if you're a new business owner and you don't know how to sell, you're already in trouble. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying that to let you know if you don't know how to sell, you don't really have a business. Most people think sales is sleazy. It's not. It's a service. It's a skill that helps transform your business. So in today's video, I'm gonna walk you through what I wish someone told me earlier, because once I learned how to sell, everything changed. Sales is the absolute best skill you can have as a creator or founder. Everything in this game is all psychology and understanding people and understanding how to communicate, understanding how to tell stories, understanding how to show up. Whether it's you posting on Instagram or you selling somebody on a service, it's all about the psychology of understanding people and how to properly communicate with people and how to use your tonality, how to use your voice, how to show up, sometimes on camera, sometimes not on camera. Sales is going to help you elevate every part of your business. If you know marketing, you have to have an aspect of sales. If you're in the HR department, you have to have an aspect of sales. If you're a creator and you're trying to work with a brand, you have to understand an aspect of sales. Sales is the number one skill that's going to change your life, because when you understand sales and when you understand the psychology that goes along with sales, you understand how to speak to people, how to communicate, how to work with people, and how to persuade people to do things that they need to do for themselves in order to reach their goals. It's about problem solving. And when you can take somebody through that journey, it's going to transform your life and the lives of the people that you work with. You'll know when it's time to pivot versus persevere because the market is going to respond to what you're doing. If you're getting some type of feedback from people on a consistent basis, the market is going to tell you, hey, this is the change that you need to make. And so that could be a pivot while also persevering. So the destination has always been the same for me. Sometimes it requires me to change how I'm getting there. Sometimes it may be that I'm working with a different person. Sometimes it may be I'm doing something a little bit different. But in order for you to grow your business, you have to grow yourself. Continue to be focused and continue to be locked in on building yourself in order to build your business. But you have to be consistently growing yourself, growing your team, growing the people around you. All types of brands who have done the same thing forever usually end up having a slow death. You think about BlackBerry and companies like that who decided when the iPhone entered the market that they weren't going to change because they felt like they had such a stronghold on the market that they didn't need to do anything differently. And now you don't hear anything about BlackBerry anymore because you didn't make an adjustment. And so you have to constantly be innovating, constantly be thinking of new ideas, trying new things. Otherwise, you end up in bankruptcy. One thing people don't tell you about when you're trying to build something for the first time in the history of your family is how hard that path is going to be. You're going to face so many different roadblocks, so many different obstacles, because either nobody in your family has done it before or you don't have a mentor that can tell you what to do. And you don't have that level of guidance from somebody. The syndrome will show up. But to think about even imposter syndrome, if you prepare yourself, if you're constantly preparing yourself, constantly working on yourself, that imposter syndrome would disappear. You have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations on a consistent basis and have people humiliate you sometimes, unfortunately. Be willing to get hung up on. Be willing to hear no from people. You run away from rejection because you think, oh, if I ask this person this, they're going to say no. Well, you don't really know what's going to happen, but you don't have an opportunity to figure it out. And you maintain that imposter syndrome, so you prevent yourself from growing. And the way to get through that imposter syndrome, the way to get through this idea of failure is to push through. I'll put it this way, and this is probably the simplest way I can say it. It's better to fail and figure it out than to not figure it out because you're afraid to fail. Success was always the only option for me, and it should be the only option for you. So if you're struggling with the idea of, is this thing going to work out? You're probably on the path of someone who doesn't believe enough in yourself. And this idea of quitting, sometimes for people, it's not even, I want to quit and give up forever. Sometimes I need to just pivot a little bit and go in a different direction and change how I'm getting there. Because even if you walk down a path and you find yourself walking in the wrong direction, at least you know not to go that way. You could turn around and go the other way. So for me, this idea of quitting means I'm not giving myself the opportunity to figure it out. And yes, it gets hard. Doubt comes up. Imposter syndrome may even come up every once in a while. Fear may come up every once in a while. But I wrote a book when I was 23 years old because I realized I was at a point in my life where nobody could give me the guidance that I needed, and I had to figure it out. I told myself at that point in time I had to change my own life. What did that mean at the time? I had to live in fearlessness every day because there's a lot of people out here who live in fear every day. So you literally have to change your life in order to change your life. So whether it's fear, imposter syndrome, doubt, you're trying to tell yourself something other than I need to continue going down this path and continue working on myself, you have to figure it out. And that's always been it for me. The most underrated skill every founder should master is perseverance. What people don't tell you on this journey of entrepreneurship, being a founder, is how difficult that path is going to be. And it's going to be more than challenging your sales skills, your business skills, your marketing skills. It's going to challenge you in every way possible. So these ideas that you hold near and dear to your heart, that a lot of other people are not going to believe in, and they're not going to believe in you, and they're going to tell you, hey, get a regular job and do something else. They're going to tell you it's not going to work. You have to have a certain level of mental fortitude in order to push through that. Those nights when you're up trying to figure this whole thing out, when you're crying sometimes and when you can't sleep and when you don't know the answers, perseverance is going to be what helps push you through. Perseverance is going to be what helps remind you on those days when it's really hard what you're really fighting for. That's why Simon Sinek talks about having a why, having a reason to keep pushing, because sometimes logic is going to show up and say, this thing is not going to work. You got to pay your bills. You got to do this and that. You got to work with this person, that person. You got to go get a job, whatever it may be. Believing during those times is probably going to be the most difficult periods of your life. You are going to be challenged in ways that average people won't be challenged. So you have to show up for yourself every day in order to persevere through those moments when it gets really tough. Real quick, if this is hitting home, do two things for me. Number one, make sure you like and share this video so YouTube knows to share it with more people. Number two, drop a comment under the video and let me know the number one thing that's stopping you from selling confidently. I read every single comment and I will respond with some strategy. Let's get back into the video. If you're struggling at any point in business, I'll explain to you why faith is going to help pull you out of that and allow you to show up in ways that you possibly can't even imagine right now for yourself. I started selling when I was a kid. My friends and I, we used to get these drawings. We used to do these Dragon Ball Z drawings, and we should sell them to our classmates for 25, 50 cents, $1. Believe me, that was yesterday. I'm only 25. By the time I got to high school, I organized a couple of people and we started to sell chips and juice and cinnamon rolls. I've talked about this before. Got to college, I started as a car salesman. Then eventually I went over to full-time sales. At every stage of that journey, I was learning something new about business, communication, and psychology and the way it impacts people's lives. In those moments when it got really dark, when your quota wasn't met, when it was really difficult and you got somebody breathing down your neck, or you're not getting the commission that you got the last month and the money is not flowing the same way, what that allowed me to do was create a different challenge for myself. Because if I was able to achieve something, it showed me that I was always able to do more. How does that connect to faith? Sales forced me to lean on my faith because I had to have a level of belief in myself and what I was capable of doing and putting together for people in order to help them achieve the goals that they wanted to achieve. Even if it was getting them a new minivan or a new Toyota Avalon. There was this lady who I sold a 2012 Toyota Avalon to. And after that conversation with her, she enjoyed that experience so much. Her husband, unfortunately, had just passed. She made sure to show back up to that dealership to give me a book that her husband wrote. And I still have that book to this day. but it was something that she wanted. And because of the faith that I had in myself to continue to show up and continue to do the work of service for people, it allowed me to understand business in a completely different way. I'm going to say something that people won't like. If you decide to charge less, you're only cheating yourself. I've never been the kind of person who thinks about discounts for people, because if the goal is for me to give you a discount, we probably shouldn't be working together in the first place. What you're telling me and what I'm also telling myself in that situation is neither one of us understand my value. If I have to discount, that means I didn't communicate my value enough to you, and you don't understand the value that I have. We haven't spent enough time with each other to understand why I'm charging the investment that I'm charging. We haven't spent enough time with each other walking through the value of what this is going to bring to your life. We haven't spent enough time together to understand the return on investment, because my thought process is this: if I'm charging you $1,000, $5,000, I need to be making you 10 to 50 grand. I need to 10x whatever I'm charging you. So if I'm discounting any of that, that means I either haven't communicated my value. Actually, that's exactly what it means. I haven't communicated my value, so you don't understand my value. You're discounting because people don't understand confidently enough how you're going to help them solve the problems that they're hoping to solve. Everybody's not going to see the world the way that you do. Everybody's not going to understand your vision. There will be moments where you will feel unseen. But the thing about it, though, that's not an excuse. You have to continue to show up, because otherwise your business fails. You have to show up for your clients, for your people, especially when you're doing something for yourself. The reality is, if you're hoping to build something of your own from the ground up, it's going to be one of the most difficult challenges in your life, but it's also one of the most rewarding. As your business grows, you inevitably grow. You have to grow. You learn more as a business owner, and you have to show up more as a business owner, because there's nobody to fall back on. Nobody is paying your health insurance. Nobody is taking care of that for you. You have to be willing to show up and take care of yourself. But it gets back to the discipline of knowing what you need to do every day, because nobody's going to tell you to clock in. Nobody's going to tell you, oh, okay, you need to turn this report in today. Nobody's going to say, I need you to provide the sales data from last month and meet this quota. You are the determining factor in whether your business is going to be successful or not. The only person who can decide that is you. So if you don't show up, you better go get a job, because it's not going to work out. As I look back on my career, there was definitely a point where I was scared to sell. I was scared to show up on camera sometimes. I used to hope that people would miss the meeting so I didn't really have to get on and pitch to people. I would hope that in this moment that the preparation that I didn't do didn't show up in the conversations that I had with people. The number one thing I would tell myself, if I had to go back and say something about being afraid to sell, is if you do not learn how to sell, you are going to ruin your life. The reason for that is you're not going to know how to properly communicate with people. You're not going to know how to run a business. You're not going to know how to show up. You're not going to have the right mindset to do the things that you need to do in order to be successful. You can try to run away from it all you want to, but that is going to be the thing that actually changes your life. That's going to be the thing that helps you speak better. That's going to be the thing that helps you show up better. That's going to be the thing that challenges your mindset to continue to be the person that you desire to be. You're going to go through some things that are very challenging in your life. And the fact that you stood in the pocket and showed up and presented and did what you needed to do in the times when it was very difficult in your life, you allowed yourself to grow. You allowed yourself to change. You allowed yourself to be uncomfortable so you can see the growth. Comfort is a beautiful place, but there is no growth there. So if you don't know how to sell, the hard times you think you're having right now are going to be way harder because you haven't put in the work and you haven't given the proper effort to become the person that you desire to be.